Do you ever feel that weird tightness or ache in the front of your shins when you're running or walking? That's your anterior tibialis talking to you, and today we're going to give it some love. I hate long intros, probably like you, so I'm going to keep this one short. If you need direct access to me, check the description below, and we'll get right to it. All right, so when I am trigger pointing the anterior tibialis, I am staying in this area. You don't want to go too high because it's a bony structure, and you don't want to go too low because it's a bony structure, but it is also where the tendons kind of pop out, and you don't want to inflame that area, which can happen. You end up with some edema, and it's just uncomfortable. So we're going to stay in the meat area of the muscle. So all I'm doing when I do this is I'm taking the ball, and I'm going to start at the top. You can start anywhere, but I start here, and I roll up and down the muscle while moving side to side along it. So we're strumming the muscle like it's a guitar string as we move down, and we're searching for the trigger points. So that looks like this. I'm rolling slowly, doing this side to side, kind of locating the areas that hurt the most. And I'm never letting the pain exceed more than a 6 or 7 out of 10. This is super important. If you go beyond that, then you end up doing damage to the tissue, and that is not good. I'm also using this hand that's not supporting my body, and I'm pressing down into my leg. You don't have to do that. You can take your hand off and just do it with your leg alone. I like to add a little bit extra pressure. And once I've located a good spot, I will just sit on it for 30 to 60 seconds, and then I'll move on to another spot. And I will just do that until I feel like I've hit a lot of the trigger points, and then I will stretch it, which we'll talk about in a second. You can also target the outer muscles here too. So the tibialis anterior runs right down the middle here. There are also all these other muscles that we can attack as well. And we're going to do that by just sitting down, putting a leg out in front of us. And we're basically going to do the same thing. We're going to roll back and forth along the muscle as we go down. We can just do a straight roll. And I've already found a spot right there, which you know you find because it's like a heightened sensation. You definitely know when you're on top of a sore area. And I'm going to introduce some range of motion by just rotating the ankle, working through those trigger points. You can also do that with the tibialis anterior by pinning the muscle with a dorsiflex foot, like this, and then moving your weight back to stretch out the leg. Essentially what's happening is you're pinning the muscle on top of the trigger point, and then you're pointing your foot, which is taking that muscle and elongating it. That's going to force the muscle that's pinned to stretch, which is going to break up the adhesions. All right, so stretching the anterior tibialis is not the easiest thing. There isn't really a good stretch for it, but this is the best we can do. A lot of people will use this stretch to stretch their toes, and that's usually the focus of this for people that are like gymnasts or divers or even dancers. They'll do this a lot just to work on their toe point. But what you can do is kind of shift it up a little bit higher. If you lean your leg down and push with your hand, kind of like we did for the trigger pointing, into the back of the leg or even maybe down by your ankle. It isn't perfect, but this is really the best you can do with it. And even if you're not getting your anterior tibialis that much, you're still going to get a good benefit out of the front of your foot and some of the lower muscles and just smaller things down there anyways. So it's still a good thing for your ankle regardless. And that's partially why trigger pointing is so important for your tibialis anterior, because there isn't really a good stretch for it. And if you can't stretch it that well, how do you expect to make it better in the long run without trigger pointing it? But now that you know how to stretch it, kind of, we're going to talk about strengthening it, which was popularized by the knees over toes guy. Doing anterior tibialis exercises was never really a big thing until probably about 5-10 years ago as this started to gain popularity. But since then, it has grown massively, and it helps a lot of people prevent shin splints and any other ankle injuries, as well as some knee injuries too. So let's talk about a couple ways to do it. The easiest and most accessible way to do it is just to do it against a wall. So you're going to lean up against a wall, and you're going to put your feet out probably about 12 inches in front of you, 18 inches maybe, and keep your butt or your lower back glued to the wall, and just keep your legs straight and raise your toes towards you over and over again. Those are the reps. You can increase the difficulty by moving your feet further out or doing more reps, but you really want to make sure you're getting the most range of motion possible. Being able to do a good amount of reps, probably like 10 to 15 range, before you start to venture out and make it more and more difficult. I've incorporated this into my warm-ups before I run, and it helps immensely. This is going to reduce injury risk long term, and it's also just going to make you a healthier individual. Now, the second way that you can do it is to get one of these guys. I don't remember how expensive they are, and honestly, they're not that much better than doing it against a wall, but you have a controlled mechanism and an ability to scale with weight. I do recommend wearing shoes or getting some sort of towel to put on with it, so that way you don't hurt your feet, but all you have to do is slip your foot in and start doing ankle raises. You just have to have your foot elevated. It's pretty straightforward. And they're also good for your hip flexors because you can do exercises where you lift your leg up with weight like that. So there are some other things that you can do with this tool, but if you're just talking strictly anterior tibialis, doing it against a wall is plenty good enough, and you can get very far with just a wall. I'll put a link for this in the description if it interests you. Again, not really needed. But for that extra stuff that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, there is some correlation with the foot tension and posterior leg compartment tension that will actually exacerbate or make shin tension worse. So if you have a lot of pain in the front of your shins, it is definitely important to make sure that you learn how to trigger point and stretch your feet, as well as your low calf and whole calf, really, for that matter. I have made a video about that. It's the previous video on my channel, so go check that out so you can learn how to fix your foot and low ankle area. That should actually help with the shin if that is something that is a problem for you. And if you're watching this video and you're listening to this right now, probably is. So I hope that was helpful, and I will talk to you in the next one.